At Port of Manzanillo on Mexico's Pacific coast, the country's largest port and gateway for 40% of its foreign trade, an unprecedented wave of abandoned cargo has erupted. In June alone, nearly 900 containers filled with Chinese goods were left behind by their owners, a year-on-year surge of more than 300%. Custom inspections delivered a devastating verdict. Most of the shipments were classified as counterfeit or pirated goods.
This
afternoon, a friend called me, and my heart just sank for him. His shipment to Mexico was one of those 900 abandoned containers. 400,000 yuan in goods and 30,000 in shipping costs, all gone. His voice was shaking over the phone. 900 containers left stranded. You know what that means? Even conservatively, a 40-foot container is worth about 400,000 yuan, so 900 of them, that's 360 million yuan. For a faucet business, a 20-foot container runs around 1.2 million. These aren't just numbers. They're the blood, sweat, and tears of factories, trading companies, and overseas clients. It's workers' overtime pay, families' hopes. The worst part? Those goods sit at the Mexican port, racking up massive storage fees every day, only to end up as garbage. I keep wondering, what are those business owners doing now? Some are probably clinging to hope, chasing down clients. Others might be liquidating assets or planning to skip town. Some are likely hiding somewhere sobbing. They're grinding online, but offline, it's all falling apart.
However, this vlogger failed to address a key issue. Many exporters could not provide proper paperwork through legitimate channels, leading customs to flag the goods as counterfeit. In many cases, the declarations simply did not match what was actually inside the containers. Online reactions were blunt. One viewer commented, "If it involves fake goods and intellectual property violations, then this outcome is deserved." Another pointed out that legitimate exporters using proper clearance procedures are not affected. The crisis, they said, comes from so-called grey clearance shipments, a form of smuggling. Because Mexico's overall tax rate is relatively high, some smaller cross-border sellers try to cut costs through grey clearance, disrupting the entire market. Industry insiders report that many containers have already been seized, with even close contacts in their circles caught up in the crackdown. Others revealed that thousands of containers are now stranded at Mexican ports, many stuck for more than 3 months. The abandoned shipments of Chinese goods at the Port of Manzanillo have sparked widespread concern. At the center of the storm is Mexico's intensified campaign against counterfeit trade. The National Customs Agency of Mexico, or ANAM, has rolled out tough new measures, leaving no room for shipments without proper compliance documents. Those goods face only one fate: being abandoned. Most of the seized containers are filled with counterfeit Chinese products ranging from perfumes, cosmetics, handbags, tennis shoes, and sneakers to tools, tires, and textiles. A single custom fine can wipe out the entire value of the container, leaving exporters with nothing but losses. Digging deeper into the wave of abandoned shipments, shocking truths have come to light. Document discrepancies. Bills of landing and packing lists often bear no resemblance of the actual cargo inside. Goods simply don't match the paperwork. False declarations. Overseas agents fail to declare the real product information, leaving hidden risk buried in the process. Abandonment as damage control. Faced with massive fines and the threat of lawsuits, many importers are left with no choice but to walk away from their goods. To combat increasingly sophisticated smuggling and concealment methods, the Mexican government has built a highly refined cross-verification system. At Manzanillo Port, custom officials now rely on advanced technology, including gamma-ray scanners, X-ray machines, and multi-layered inspection networks. The port has also deployed specialized inspection teams, seasoned chemical experts, and trained sniffer dogs. Suspicious containers flagged by the system or inspectors are subject to full unpacking and inspection, ensuring that every shipment is 100% legal and compliant. As Mexico's customs enforcement grow tighter, importers attempting to smuggle goods, underreport prices, or ship counterfeit products are finding the cost and risk impossibly high, leaving abandonment as their only option. Deputy Director of Custom Operations at Manzanillo, Luis Angel Martinez Cabrera, explained that importers abandon their cargo mainly because of tougher anti-smuggling enforcement and disputes over tariff classifications, not because of customs inefficiency. Martinez noted that while abandoned shipments don't impact tariff collection, they do require lengthy inspection and disposal procedures. This clogs the port's operations and severely reduces throughput efficiency. Compared to Europe and the United States, Mexico's customs clearance process is notably more complex for 4 key reasons. First, seizure upon report. If a brand rights holder files a complaint, suspected counterfeit goods are almost certain to be seized. Second, heavy penalties without authorization. Any branded goods lacking official licensing documents face routine detention, fines, and confiscation. Third, the OEM original equipment manufacturer trap. Even legitimate OEM products can be seized as counterfeits if the brand mark is not registered with Mexican customs or proper authorization papers are missing, a major challenge for Chinese OEM exporters. Fourth, collective liability in shared containers. If even one item in a confiscated shipment is suspected of infringement, the entire container is subject to inspection. The resulting delays, high storage cost, and uncontrollable risk often forces consignees to abandon the entire container, leaving innocent exporters with devastating losses. Since the start of 2025, Mexico has entered a period of intensified custom inspections. As early as March 5th, the National Customs Agency of Mexico carried out major anti-smuggling operations at the Pantaco Customs Facility in Mexico City, seizing Chinese goods worth more than 300 million pesos, equivalent to about $16 million. The raid targeted 33 containers of illicit products, including speakers, electric roller skates, motorcycles, scooters, bicycles, drill bits, hydraulic jacks, toys, backpacks, clothing, and office chairs. According to Mexican authorities, the goods were classified as smuggled products because importers either failed to provide valid documentation or filed false custom declarations. In some cases, containers declared only minimal tax values while the actual worth of the cargo was many times higher. The government described the action as compliance enforcement under the framework of national security, but withheld details of specific violations. Reports have also circulated widely across the industry that Mexican authorities are setting up joint inspection checkpoints along major highways to examine container trucks, highlighting anxiety among local sellers and freight forwarders. The crackdown has sparked widespread attention and debate. For Mexico, where manufacturing makes up only a modest share of the GDP, cheap Chinese imports have placed immense pressure on small and medium-sized factories, many of which are on the brink of collapse. The government is under growing pressure to show it is protecting domestic industry. Business leaders in Mexico have criticized China's low-price competition for eroding the local market. Recently, the country has put forward plans to reduce imports from China. On January 13, Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum Pardo announced her intention to cut Chinese imports in order to support domestic industries while strengthening alliance with the United States and Canada. The disruptive impact of low-cost Chinese goods on global market has prompted countries to step up intellectual property enforcement in 2025. On June 26, the European Public Prosecutor Office, EPPO, launched a coordinated operation codenamed Calypso across 14 EU members countries, seizing 480 Chinese containers in one sweep. A total of 101 search operations were carried out in Bulgaria, Greece, France, and Spain. Targets include custom brokerage offices, companies allegedly controlled by criminal groups, private residences of suspects, as well as tax advisors, law firms, accounting offices, and transport companies. The raids expose a massive criminal network suspected of evading custom duties and value-added tax on Chinese imports through illegal means. The seized goods include vast quantities of textiles, footwear, electric scooters, and e-bikes. Almost simultaneously, alarms sounded at cargo terminals in Rotterdam, Netherlands, and container yards in Piraeus, Greece. EPPO enforcement teams stormed facilities seizing 5.8 million euros in cash, which included Hong Kong dollars, euros and digital wallets, and cryptocurrency. Of that amount, 4.75 million euros was confiscated in Greece, with the rest seized in France and Spain. EPPO also seized 7,133 electric bicycles, 3,696 electric scooters, and 480 containers. The containers are subject to further inspections at the Port of Piraeus. In Spain, 11 properties, 27 vehicles, and luxury goods including watches, handbags, and jewelry were confiscated. Additionally, in Greece, freeze orders were issued on real estate, vessels, and bank accounts. According to EPPO, the criminal group has caused economic losses amounting to nearly 700 million euros, equivalent to nearly 820 million US dollars for the European Union and Greece. In the first quarter of 2025 alone, tax evasion linked to e-bikes and scooters exceed 250 million euros, while value-add tax fraud reached an astonishing 450 million euros. The cross-border raids across 14 countries led to the arrest of 10 suspects, including 2 custom officials. Firearms and cold weapons were also found in the homes of 3 suspects, indicating the criminal group had infiltrated port management through bribery. Local media described the operation as unprecedented in scale. According to Greek custom officials, more than 200 officers were mobilized, and it took a full 72 hours just to complete the initial inventory. Insiders revealed that the smuggling networks had penetrated the port of Piraeus like a virus. From dock workers to custom officials, more than 30 people were manipulated. Such widespread corruption implicating more than 30 individuals at a European port is highly unusual, highlighting the extent of the criminal organization's influence. According to the EPPO, the smuggling network was largely controlled by Chinese nationals. The group oversaw the entire chain, importing goods from China into the EU, distributing and selling them across member states, laundering the proceeds, funneling profits back to China, and systematically evading custom duties and VAT. Corruption among Port of Piraeus staff and weak regulatory insight provide fertile ground for the Chinese smuggling syndicate. Reports note that Chinese largest shipping firm, COSCO Shipping, has effectively taken control of Piraeus port through acquisitions. In 2016, COSCO became the majority shareholder of the Piraeus Port Authority by acquiring a controlling stake and increased its ownership to 67% in 2021. Since COSCO's formal takeover, container throughput has risen sharply year after year. By 2024, the port handled 5.4 million TEUs, making it one of the busiest hubs in the Mediterranean. But behind that prosperity, a massive grey market customs chain had quietly taken root. Chinese freight forwarders and exporters have been deeply shaken. At Piraeus alone, more than 50 Chinese freight forwarding companies have been affected, including many long-established firms with decades of local presence. The ripple effect of this crackdown extend far beyond Piraeus. EPPO also conducted searches in Spain, Italy, and several other countries, freezing properties and bank accounts. In total, the operation spanned 6 EU member countries, highlighting the scale and sophistication of the smuggling network. So how exactly did this criminal syndicate operate? According to the Greek newspaper Documento News, the network led by a Chinese woman known as Kelly has been evolving over the past decade, becoming significantly more efficient and automated in the last 5 years. As a group's leader, Kelly is believed to have acted as a coordinator and decision maker. Reports describe her as a translator who leveraged her language skills to liaise between port staff, freight forwarders, and overseas contacts. Her suspected ties to tobacco smuggling suggest she may have extensive experience in transnational organized crime. Reports indicate this problem has existed for years. In fact, some custom officials at Piraeus routinely fail to comply with Custom Regime 42, which allows goods to enter the EU without VAT if they are transferred to another designated country. European institutions had long been aware of these violations and even fined Greece millions of US dollars. Investigations revealed a highly complex organization structure. The criminal network established shell companies in China, Greece, Italy, and other countries, using layers of subcontracting to disguise the true origin and destination of goods. Their methods include falsifying documents and tampering with official customs declarations. They also grossly underreport cargo values. For example, an e-scooter worth 500 euros was declared at only 100 euros, slashing its value by 80%. From departure in China to delivery to European consumers, a single shipment could pass through 5 or 6 different companies. Each transfer altered documents, making it extremely difficult for authorities to trace. The network also engaged in money laundering, disguising illicit profits as legitimate trade income through inflated invoices and fake transactions. According to the EPPO, the money laundering involved may exceed 1 billion euros, well beyond tax fraud, rising to the level of serious economic crime. EU custom data shows that 15% of Chinese goods entering Europe are improperly declared, suggesting that the smuggling model has become an industry norm, implicating numerous small and mid-sized freight forwarders. But the costs of such crime are staggering. Once shipments are seized, companies not only lose their goods, but also face enormous storage fines. For the 480 containers already impounded, daily storage costs exceed €10,000, with investigations dragging on. Many businesses now face bankruptcy. Of those sealed 480 containers, more than 60% belong to small and medium-sized freight forwarders, implicating over 300 exporters from Guangdong and Zhejiang. A textile exporter in Shaoxing, Zhejiang, voiced his frustration. Every day I pay more than €10,000 in storage fees. If this goes on another week, I'll go bankrupt. A logistic company in Ningbo ran the numbers. Under the EU's new regulations, clearance times have jumped from 3 days to 15, while freight costs have surged 30%. The foreign trade sector now faces a cascading crisis. Goods cannot be retrieved, while daily storage fees rack up tens of thousands of euros. And to make matters worse, the EU has tightened its import review rules. Average clearance times per container have risen by 3 days, while overall shipping costs have soared 30%. The EU's retaliatory oversight has been both swift and severe. Greek ports have launched a 3-month strict inspection regime, pushing the inspection rate for Chinese textiles and e-vehicles from 3.7% to 21.6%. Every single container of Chinese textiles and e-vehicles must now be opened. What once cleared in 2 to 3 days may now take up to 2 weeks. Dutch e-commerce platforms are outright refusing goods cleared through Greece unless backed by original invoices and full logistic tracking records. Freight forwarders are being forced to add triple-layer checks, certificate of origin verification, GPS tracking of shipments, and background audits of custom brokers. Each order now costs 20 to 30% more. By late June, declarations for Chinese shipments at Greek ports have plunged 45%. Some freight forwarders shift to Spain or the Netherlands, but the EU has already launched linked inspections. Any cargo declared at more than 50% below market value is automatically flagged for inspection. In the long run, this episode may mark a turning point in China-EU trade relations. The regulatory grip is tightening. Containers are now fitted with GPS trackers, monitoring every step from loading to unloading. And this is no isolated case. It is part of a sweeping EU crackdown on the grey areas of China-EU trade. As one EU official has said, the Great Reckoning has only just begun. With weak domestic demand, Beijing has sought to stimulate its economy by dumping cheap goods abroad. But behind the low prices often lie undervalued invoices, counterfeit branding, and VAT fraud. Mexico, aiming to protect its industries and fiscal revenues, will continue tightening oversight of Chinese goods. The EU, meanwhile, worries not only about unfair trade, but also about the geopolitical implications of Chinese-controlled ports becoming hubs for illegal commerce. Together, Mexico and the EU may well set the tone for how other nations shape their future trade policies with China.